Hello, I'm Simon, and welcome back to the Bookster podcast from inside the SaaS holiday rental software company Bookster, based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Follow along as Bookster discuss their journey and their inner workings. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you find these conversations insightful and ultimately helpful. Now, I'm joined today, as always, by CEO and co-founder of Bookster, Robin Morris. Robin, morning.
Good morning, Simon.
And also today, we're lucky enough to be joined by Bookster's account manager, Johnny Brannan. Johnny, welcome.
Good morning, Simon.
Morning, both. Thank you for your time this morning. We're sort of now a few episodes in, so it's nice to have somebody else to talk to rather than just Robin.
Thanks.
So, with that in mind, Johnny, maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit more and about what you do at the company.
Yeah, so I'm the account manager here at Bookster, and primarily the first point of contact for any kind of prospective clients coming towards Bookster, trying to find out a little bit more about them, making sure that they're suitable for Bookster, and kind of being their first contact and first part of their journey on the way to becoming a Bookster client.
Great. Okay. So perhaps if we step back a little bit first of all before we get to sort of the day-to-day stuff, can you tell us a little bit about maybe the history you have with Bookster and how you came to be part of the team?
Yeah, so I joined Tribal Logic, so the mother company back in the day, about 5 years ago now. So Caravan Site Finder was another side of the business that we had, which was a caravan listing directory for campsites and caravan parks. So my role there primarily was just to essentially renew people's subscriptions for their listing on Caravan Site Finder and to try and find some new clients for that. But ultimately, we sold that business, and from there, we've just been focusing all our energy on Bookster. So I think it was probably about 9 months that I worked at SiteFinder before Bookster just became priority number one, and we've just been keeping growing ever since.
Great. And was there a difference between the sort of clients you were talking to as Caravan Site Finder than the ones you are today?
Oh yeah, significantly. So with SiteFinder, as it was just a listing directory. So in terms of kind of bringing in impressions for people's listings, bringing them inquiries to hopefully get people to book their pitches or their campsites, and it was pretty much a majority of cold calling for that side of things. There wasn't a whole lot of inbound leads for Caravan Site Finder. Moving over to Bookster, the vast majority is inbound leads coming our way because they need something from us. They need the booking engine, the channel manager, and the property management software as a whole with all the tools that we've got to make their lives a lot easier.
Right. So the clients you're dealing with now are business to business clients and rather than business to consumers?
Yeah, I suppose even the kind of business to business, you've got the big businesses like agencies with 10, 50, 100 plus properties, and even the people who are kind of running their own businesses solo, which is very similar to B2C, but it is a business that they're running, whether they've got one property or five. They're running their own business and they maybe employ other people such as cleaners, guest liaisons, maintenance people. So there's a lot more to kind of find out from them about their business, what they're looking for, their kind of the biggest pain points in their life, and how we can make their life easier with Bookster. Whereas reflecting back on SiteFinder, it was just me reaching out to people, seeing if they needed a bit more help getting in inquiries and people reaching out to them. So I think with Bookster, it's a lot nicer knowing that they're coming to us looking for something rather than me reaching out to them.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah. So, sorry, Robin, you were
I
going
was
to say?
going to say, yeah, Caravan Site Finder. I mean, they were both. That was business to business as well, but it was like an advertising platform, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So it was a bit like, the reason that the caravan parks, campsites want to list on something like Caravan Site Finder is it's an advertising. It's their
Exposure.
exposure basically not an awful lot of functionality really. Whereas Bookster is a software platform that's all about functionality, really. Whereas you did have before you joined us, you were on a more of a B2C role, weren't you?
Yeah, I worked at a self-storage warehouse, so basically selling empty space, which was the vast majority of people moving houses, and they've got a period of time where they need to store all their furnishings,
Yeah.
which was, yeah, very different. Strange way to make money selling empty space.
Selling empty space, like selling ice to the Eskimos.
Oh yeah.
So how do then people? How would you find people getting in touch with you sort of now with Bookster? What's the most common sort of route into finding you?
Yeah, so the vast majority of people are inbound leads. So I think most recently we found quite a lot of people through word of mouth, especially kind of in Scotland where we're based and where we've grown our client base. I guess we're international. We've got clients in Europe, we've got clients in America, but yeah, most people are coming into Bookster. They're looking for, it could be an availability calendar that they want on their website. That might be all that they're searching for initially, but they come to Bookster and they find out all these tools that we've got that can make their life easier. It can help increase their exposure. It can save them time. We've also got kind of people clicking through adverts. There's Facebook groups where people are finding us, like hosts of holiday rentals that are just kind of chatting amongst themselves, and someone will say, I use Bookster, they're great. And from there, it just kind of, it's like a domino effect, really, of people being able to find us in a number of different ways.
So inbound would be the opposite of that would be you cold calling them basically.
Yeah.
So inbound means they talk to us. So
Yeah.
they ask us something. So either they register
Yep.
or they ask for a call or ask for a demo. So they're basically initiating the contact, as opposed to us sending them an email or us phoning someone up or whatever. So yeah, that's inbound versus outbound.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
And they, and I guess the inbound stuff is through your website. I guess you're saying people contact you that way, is it?
Yeah, so people will register on Bookster. Like I mentioned, it could be that they're just looking for a calendar, or they might know that they want a property management software specifically, but they'll register on Bookster so that they can get a feel for it. They can play around with the software. But at that point, I've got some of their contact details, and I'll start to reach out to them. An initial phone call where we can try and establish what they're looking for, a little bit more about their requirements and how they run their business to make sure that Bookster is going to be suitable for what they're looking for.
so yeah, most of the time they're not simply. Um, I mean, they do sometimes ask to have a demo or they ask for a callback. We've got some forms for that, but most of the time what they're doing is literally signing up to Bookster and getting access into the the console and being able to start the process of setting up themselves. That's what they're doing most of the time, isn't it? So they are literally starting to use it themselves and understand it a bit themselves. So Johnny, when you contact people, do they say, "Oh, I've been having a play around," or what do they say that they've actually used it at all, or do they most of the time say, "Oh, I tried, I just registered and left it there"?
It varies greatly. So I would say probably almost 50-50. Like some people will go in and they can create their first property, they can add some photographs and the details about their property. But a lot of people will log in and they don't really know where they're going from that point. A lot of the holiday rental owners maybe aren't quite so tech savvy. So those sorts of people need me to kind of reach out, essentially give them a helping hand and a guide, and from myself and even the rest of the Bookster team to essentially get them up and running. But then you've got the kind of flip side of the coin where people can sign up by themselves. So Bookster is self sign up if you're kind of able to do so and if you want to. So they can go in, they can create their property, they can pick the package with the features that they're looking for, and they can get up and running all by themselves, really. However, I think the vast majority will kind of come to us and will need a little bit of help, at least to get set up and make sure that everything's in place and to help them feel confident to use the software moving forward as well.
Well, for sure, I imagine people who have already sort of played about and signed up to a certain extent, how you deal with them would be different to a sort of a cold call, because the people are always sort of halfway there already, I guess, perhaps. Would I be sort of right in that? You're not trying to entice them in at that point. You're just trying to reassure them, I guess, it's an easy product to use.
Yeah, of course. Well, we get people who will register and have a play around, but they're also maybe registering on other softwares. There's obviously Bookster isn't the only property management software out there, so there is a lot of options. Don't get me wrong, quite a lot of them have the kind of same bulk of features, but I would say from our kind of feedback, Bookster is really user friendly. It's easy to navigate, so a lot of people are able to kind of try it out when they do first get started, and it's easy for them to kind of figure that side of things out. But yeah, in comparison to, I guess, cold calling, which occasionally we will do, I'll maybe do some prospecting, maybe looking for people who have a website, but maybe they don't take bookings on their website for whatever reason. It's just inquiries. But we know from our own research that having a calendar on your website that people can click through and make a booking, and that's much more successful rather than waiting for someone to make an inquiry and you have to get back in touch with them. If I was a holiday rental owner, I'd rather people were able to make their booking and look at the availability rather than reaching out to me and saying, what's your availability? That's going to take time out of my day to try and respond to them. Whereas if you're using something like Bookster, they can go in, they can check the availability themselves, and they can make the booking. And with the kind of cold calling side of things, when people are registering on Bookster, that's what we'd call a warm lead. So they're already looking for something like this. If I'm cold calling people, they might not want a property management software, and it's, I would say, a very low success rate for those sorts of things. So the inbound leads are definitely the bread and butter, but you still have to go out and search for clients sometimes.
I guess you personally might have to have quite a thick skin as well if people turn around and say that they're not interested.
I mean, it's for myself, I've kind of worked in, I guess, sales as a whole, kind of my whole career, from starting at McDonald's trying to upsell people to a large meal, to now getting people to sign up and
That's
use
very much a
Bookster.
warm lead.
Yeah.
Warm lead.
Well, it depends
I
how
can't say
long the
no to
burgers
those
have been
upsells.
sitting there.
That's
It
no
could be
problem.
cold. So I've completely forgotten the question that you'd asked me there, Simon.
The strategy, we're all thinking of Big Macs now. Apart from Robin. So no, let's reframe the question a little bit, I guess. How do you know, or maybe you don't, the suitability of clients for Bookster? So who to contact, and how do you tell who's going to be a suitable person?
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, like I said, if I'm cold calling, for example, I'll look and find people's websites, and if they don't already have a booking engine in place, then that's someone I know they're very much likely to be a good fit for Bookster. But there's also other factors. So it could be what kind of properties that they have. So Bookster is primarily for people who have kind of whole home holiday rentals. There's a lot of people who just rent out rooms. It could be a guest house, it could be a B&B, and those sorts of things aren't ideal for Bookster. So if I find a website that doesn't have a booking engine, might get my hopes up a little bit, and then you dig in a little bit deeper, or you actually get on a phone call with them and you find out a little bit more about the kind of details and the ins and outs of their business, and find, maybe they're not a great fit for Bookster. And that's also similar with the people who are coming in to us from registering. We get people who, like I said, have guest houses, B&Bs, and what we really are ideally after is the people who are renting out those full properties, kind of multiple bedrooms. Well, could be one bedroom, could be multiple bedrooms. They've got a kitchen in there. You've got all the amenities that you're looking for when you're making a booking as a guest.
And if you've found someone who fits the bill, you think they're going to be a good fit, but they might just not be interested for whatever reason. At what point do you realise this isn't going nowhere, and how much time do you spend on it before you say, well, actually, I'm not going to bother pursuing these people anymore?
Yeah, well, I guess the worst thing that can happen is someone says no, and that's something you learn really early on. But and not to be pushy, but when you're calling people, even if they've registered and they're a warm lead that's come through, maybe the first couple of times they're going to say, "Ah, sorry, I'm busy," or "Now's not a great time to talk." So essentially, just what I try and do is kind of let them know that I want to find out more about their business, and from me finding out more about their business and how they operate, I can kind of link that back to how Bookster is going to be of use to them, rather than phoning someone up and saying, Bookster's the best software in the world, it's going to make your life easier. That is true, but like they're not going to want to, they don't want to hear about Bookster right off the bat. They want to know what we can do for them. So actually making it about them, about their business, and making sure that they are suitable to fit with how Bookster works is probably the real way to get them to open up a little bit to you and trying to build a little bit of rapport.
And so is there an example that you can share perhaps of somebody or what type of company or people that have not been suitable for Bookster?
Oh, well, with inbound leads, for example, there's people who, like I mentioned, they're maybe looking for a calendar for their website, but we had someone registered on Bookster. They wanted a calendar, but what they were looking for was an appointment-based calendar, so maybe an hourly basis rather than Bookster's calendar for properties where you book on a nightly basis. And I think they were a yoga studio, wasn't it, Robin? So people are reaching out, and I reached out to them and said, what are you looking for? And they're saying, it's a availability calendar. Oh, what's your business? Oh, I run a yoga studio. And I mean, great for them, lovely business, yoga's great, but it's not going to be a suitable fit for Bookster. And in a similar vein, there's also a Romanian company called Bookster, who is basically an online library where you can share books with people. So every so often, we'll get a bunch of leads coming through with a Romanian phone number. So regardless, I'll still phone them up just to make sure.
Right,
But it's more often than not under the expectation that they're looking for a slightly different Bookster website.
Yeah, we have. There's a suit, or
Tailors,
a tailor's, or maybe an old tailor's. I don't know if they're still going, but called Bookster as well. Bookster suits. So we get that.
I think we talked about that in the first episode. Yeah.
Actually, a huge number. Not necessarily that they get as far as Johnny, although they maybe confirm or not, but people searching for holidays.
Yeah.
So they, they search for, I don't know, they might type something into Google like holiday let software, but what they're really looking for is like booking.com.
Right,
It sounds crazy, but that people literally would type that in.
yeah.
Holiday let software, and then they might register for Bookster thinking that it's a way to book a holiday. And I suppose the lesson from that partly is obviously there's crossover terms you can never exclude because that is a total fit for what we do. So as far as language is concerned, we're attracting the right person, as it were. But the other lesson is that people, even if you're trying to be as clear as you possibly can, some people just will skip through something. They won't actually read anything about what they're saying. It's like registering for, signing up for. They've got a preconception about, I'm looking for a holiday. Oh, this website's asking me to register. I haven't read it. I'm not going to read anything around it about what it says it is. I'm just going to register. And we get that quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sort of lesson of people don't read stuff.
Yeah, we can blame our marketing director, Kelly, for being too good at her job.
I guess sort of a question that we had sent in from one of our listeners is probably quite relevant to the discussion we're having just now, especially as actually this weekend, I think, marks 4 years from when businesses were told to close, go home, and we had COVID happening. So the question that's come from James Davidson, thank you, James, is the question is, how do you keep the business operating during COVID when presumably clients aren't getting any business themselves? So it's relevant to sales, I guess, Johnny, and that obviously at that point perhaps people weren't looking to take bookings to get themselves onto your software, perhaps. So, how did your job, if you like, change over that COVID period?
Well, ultimately, I was put on furlough, so for a little while, I didn't really have much of a job to do. But what we tried to do was, firstly, take our clients into consideration at that point. So we knew our clients weren't going to be making any money from their bookings, and a lot of them maybe reached out to us. So kind of understanding the kind of human side of it, we would essentially pause their Bookster subscriptions, because as much as it would have affected us and our income, it wasn't fair for us to charge people to be using Bookster during that period. But we also knew that we had a lot of these clients who couldn't take physical bookings from guests around the world, but we knew that people like key workers were in need of accommodation. So people who were doing kind of childcare duties, nurses, doctors, paramedics, who maybe needed to isolate from their own families. And we have all these clients who would have had empty properties at the time. So we essentially set up a website for kind of NHS worker accommodation to just try and be the middleman to facilitate these key workers actually having somewhere to stay, to essentially minimize the risk of them passing anything on to their families. And I think that worked really effectively. What do you think, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, it did. But I mean, I suppose the short answer was, it. Well, we we sold Caravan Site Finder literally just a couple of weeks really before COVID started to become very clear that COVID was going to be a problem. So that to some extent that was good timing, and some extent it was bad timing. So we had a little bit of money in the bank so that we could see ourselves through COVID, but also we were kind of concentrating fully on Bookster. That was the only thing we were going to do, and suddenly we had literally no clients to, so, well, I mean, we had our existing clients, but we had no way of really getting any new ones. So, it was pretty bad from our point of view, I suppose, but also more so from our clients' perspective, that they suddenly had, there was no tourism, and although usually a chunk of our clients' business is either workers, so commercial, so a lot of that dried up. People moving house, or people maybe they've got a flood in their house or a fire or something, and they need somewhere to stay for a short period of time. So some of that kept going, but certainly the tourism side of things really dried up. So our clients really struggled, a lot of them, and so it was hard. It was definitely hard for our whole sector, really.
No, absolutely. I guess the good thing about Bookster is, I guess, because you are quite a small company, perhaps it's easier to sort of flip what you're doing slightly and change into what this new thing you did for a while in terms of trying to find people accommodation and stuff. So it's, and rather than trying to turn a big company around, you're quite flexible, I guess, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as soon as kind of the first lockdown kind of ended, there was a bit of a kind of a boom. I think everyone who was a holiday rental owner at the time, when they were allowed to open back up, or maybe even when they knew we were going to open up soon, but they weren't quite sure, a lot of those people maybe had a couple of months to actually get things in place for their own business. So at that stage, I think I was still furloughed, and then we were just getting leads coming in, people booking demos. So it was really quite fast build up when things did start opening back up, which really helped us and ultimately helped the clients as well. But yeah, it was a really kind of fast turnaround from lockdown ending to bringing on all these new clients and all the existing clients getting back up and running again.
There was definitely a post. And I think there was a kind of boom or rush afterwards. Then it sort of flattened out actually, weirdly. So it sort of, I think there was a kind of a pause, and now at the moment I would say it feels like it's back to what it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
In terms of our business, our clients, the number of people we're taking on and dealing with and growing. So I would say that's where we're currently at. So yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that you bounced back, I guess, like a lot of other places as well. But that's good for Bookster. And thank you, James, for the question. It was a good question. Thank you. If anyone else listening has a question they'd like to send in for us to answer on a future episode, please do send it to podcast@booksterhq.com. That's podcast@booksterhq.com. I think looking at the time, gentlemen, we'll probably wrap this one up. It's flown past, so thank you very much for your time this morning. Johnny, nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
And Robin, always nice to see you as well.
Thank you very much, Simon.
We'll do this again very soon. I should mention there is our sister podcast, Smashing Your Holiday Rental Goals. So that is out there in the world. We'll put a link to that in our sort of show notes as well. So if you'd like to listen to that one and leave a positive comment and a comment for us as well, will be gratefully received if you would like to do that. Thank you very much. Right, in that case, we'll wrap it up. Thank you both. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. And we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.